I'm happy to say a lot of people are very prompt with this meeting, which is awesome. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started, and as we have people interested in joining, I can usher them in. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you guys for showing up. We really appreciate it. It makes us feel good that you guys want to learn about sharks today. And so we're the American Shark Conservancy, which is a little nonprofit here in South Florida, but we have the privilege of working with some of the best shark scientists out there, which we happen to think Miss Jill Brooks is one of those. So just really quickly about the meeting, we're going to try to keep everybody on mute for a second while she her talk. And if you think of any amazing questions, there's a chat function which you can use, and I'll be looking at that, and I will make sure that we get a chance to ask Jill those questions at the very end, just because that keeps it a little bit orderly and makes it a little bit easier to get all of the questions answered. So if you guys are all okay with that, that's amazing. And also, if we can just keep you muted, again, that'll just help you guys learn a little bit easier, because then it'll keep it quiet and Jill will be able to talk. So questions in the chat function, or if mom and dad are around and have other ways of getting in touch with me, email, etc., I'll be trying to monitor all of that. The chat function is right at the bottom of your screen, and it's a great way of doing it. So like I said, today we're going to introduce Jill Brooks, who is a member of our board and who is a huge part of our project tagging hammerheads. But she spent a lot of time in Bimini, beautiful, you can see from the beautiful water in that picture, over in the Bahamas, and she's going to talk about the work that the lab with for many years over in Bimini. So I'm going to go ahead and make Jill our host for a minute, and she's going to talk about lemon sharks, and we'd love to see your questions in that chat function, okay? So the other thing is too, if you guys, we're going to record Jill's talk. If you're not comfortable with having your face being recorded that we're going to put on YouTube, then we're going to ask you to close your video during her talk portion, but then when the questions come up, we can pop you back up because we'll stop the recording then. All right, guys, I'll hand it over to Jill. I'll make her the host, and yeah, we'll hopefully have a great time.
Okay. Let me just see. Excellent. Hi, everyone. So thank you so much for signing in and wanting to learn a bit about lemon sharks. Like Hannah said, I'm a scientist with the American Shark Conservancy and a PhD student at Carleton University. I like to study fish and sharks, and I'm really interested to know their movements. So I like to ask questions like, where did they go? Why did they go there? And what made them leave where they were in the first place? So all really fascinating questions in a field of science that we call movement ecology. But enough about me. I'd like to introduce you to Lucy. So Lucy is a lemon shark from a small island in the Bahamas. She's actually older than me. I'm 34. And the last time that we met, she was actually taller than me. In fact, she's 2.58 meters, which is almost 2.5 times the height of my niece Hattie, and she turned 6 this week, so she's quite tall. Lucy has traveled thousands of miles and had a lot of baby lemon sharks in her lifetime. So I'm going to talk to you today about her life in Bimini and why she's so important to shark science. So this story began at the Bimini Biological Field Station in the Bahamas in 2014 when I was a manager of the lab. So Bimini is super sharky and known as a nursery island for lemon sharks. And can you put your hand up? I can see you guys. If you can put your hand up if you've heard of a lemon shark before. Yay. Okay, hands up if you think they're called lemon sharks because they eat lemons. Any hands if you think it's because they taste like lemons? Oh, good job, everyone. So they're actually called lemon sharks because of their color. So they're slightly yellow. But as scientists, we're trained not to identify animals based on their color. So here are a couple of other ways that we know what a lemon shark is. So like many sharks, they have 2 dorsal fins, but most sharks have a very small second dorsal fin. But actually lemons, their second one is almost as big as their first one. So that's a good indicator. And they also have a small lower caudal fin. So that's the bottom of their tail. And that's because they're a coastal shark species. So they like to swim around in shallow water where it's sandy on the bottom. And a big tail at the bottom of their tail would just kind of get in the way. So it's got a smaller lower caudal fin. And they also have really cute eyes, not so scientific, but they have smooth teeth as well, but not that you want to get that close to a live shark's teeth just to identify it. So scientists at the Bimini Station have been studying lemon sharks for almost 30 years, and we know that from tagging sharks, and often the same sharks, catching them over and over again, for so long. So lots of sections of the life cycle of the species were discovered in Bimini by Bimini scientists, but we'll start at the beginning. So lemon sharks are viviparous. So that just means that they develop inside their mums, and then they're born after about 10 months, along with about 15 of their brothers and sisters. So they're born ready to go, and they don't need any care from their mother. They just swim away, straight away. Now, because they develop inside of their mum's tummies, they're born with this. Can anyone guess what this one is? I'll give you a clue. We all have one. I just saw it on the screen. And some have an innie and some have an outie. Can anyone point on their screen what they think that this is on their own bodies? Yay, nice, Jay. So this is a belly button. So it's actually called an umbilical scar, and they take about 4 to 6 weeks to heal. And so once it's healed, you can hardly even see it. So this is the bottom of a lemon shark, and you can see there that's their belly button. So lemon sharks spend the first few years in Bimini in the mangroves. So these are mangrove trees. And they can grow in the sea, and their roots are mainly above the ground, but they provide this huge maze for lots of baby lemon sharks, crabs, lobster, and lots of fish. So it provides a lot of hiding places for them, so they can hide from bigger predators. But as lemon sharks get bigger, they have less predators, and they also need to eat more. So that means that they move around more, and they leave the mangroves to hunt for bigger fish and other things like stingrays. So as they hit their teenage years, they leave the island and cruise around thousands of miles looking for food and mates. And lemon sharks mature around age 12. So that means they can start having babies when they're 12 years old. And we know a lot about lemon sharks, again, because scientists in Bimini have been tagging them for a long time now. And mainly our biggest tagging program is in the springtime. So every spring, we try to catch all the baby lemon sharks in 2 nurseries. And we do that by setting 3 nets for 6 nights, and then we switch nurseries and do another 3 nets for 6 nights. And we try and scoop up all the babies and put them in a big pen, a big enclosure that you can see on the bottom of the screen. So what we do when we catch them, we tag them with this little chip called a pit tag. And that's the same tag that you put in a dog or a cat at the vets. And that helps you find them if they ever get lost. So it's like a barcode, you scan them and it gives you a number back. And we also measure them, and then we take a little tiny fin clip, so just cut a little bit off their fin and put it in a little vial, and that's for genetic analysis, and I'll cover that in a little while. But we catch these babies in the spring when just after they're born, and they still have their open belly button, so we know how old the shark is, and that's quite important for keeping track of how old they can get to. So just that's the size of a pit tag. Very tiny, and we just put it in their first dorsal fin, just there. So yeah, and then I said that we take a little bit of fin and send it to a genetics lab in Chicago, and the scientists there can analyze the shark's DNA, and they can tell us who they're related to, just like a crime scene. So this way we know whose brothers, sisters, mums, dads, aunts, uncles. So we get this really big family tree from all these hundreds and thousands of lemon sharks. We all know who's related to who, so it's very cool. So remember that I told you it's important for us to catch the sharks when they still have their open belly button, so we know how old they are. That's because it's really hard to tell how old a shark is otherwise. So does anyone know how we age trees? We count the number of rings on the tree, hey? So using your hands, can you put up on the screen how old you think this tree is to the bottom of the screen? Is it 1? Is it 2? How about you? Is it 3? How old do you think it is? 4? 4. Good job. So yeah, sharks have a vertebrae or a spine that's similar to us, except it isn't made of bone like ours. It's actually made of cartilage. So some other places that are made of cartilage are your nose. So it's squishy, that's cartilage. And then your ears too. So they're not bone, they're cartilage. So every year the vertebrae grows and adds a new ring to the vertebrae, just like the tree. But unfortunately, you have to cut down a tree to count the rings to see how old it is. And it's the same with a shark. So unfortunately, you can only age a dead shark like this. You can't use this method for live sharks. So we know how old our sharks are when we first tag them, but how do we keep track of them? So if we go back to the first picture, this is me putting in a different type of tag inside of a lemon shark, just like Lucy. So this tag makes a pinging noise that our underwater microphones can hear. So they can tell us when a shark and which shark swims by and tell us when they were swimming by. So we can keep track of the shark's movements that way. But back to Lucy. So we caught Lucy in 2014 in Bimini while filming for a television documentary. We scanned her and she already had a pit tag number. So that's that little chip. So we knew we'd already caught her in the past. So we put in an acoustic tag, so that's the pinging tag. We put that inside of her, stitched her up, took a tiny little genetic sample for the DNA lab, and then we let her go. So then we rushed back to the computer to look up her number to see where and when she'd been tagged by scientists in the past. And actually, she'd been caught a couple of times, so it was super exciting. So the computer told us that she was first caught in 1997. So as field biologists or field scientists, we are trained to take lots of notes all the time and keep hold of our notes. So that's me up there sitting on a tower taking lots of notes about wild lemon sharks. And that's Hannah from the American Shark Conservancy taking notes about the fishing project that we're working on now. But we went back to the notebook from 1997 and we could see that she was, I'll just highlight a few things because it's really hard to read. But there she was tagged on April 18th, 1997. She was 252 centimeters long back then. She was tagged with this pit tag number, and I call it A4D11 for short. And the scientists could tell that she was pregnant and that she could feel their pups in her tummy. So if we take a look at her timeline or her life on a timeline, and we'll see where she was when different times. So she was likely born in 1984, so that was the year before I was born. And just for reference, that was the year the
1984?
Yeah. That was the first time that Apple Macintosh sold personal computers. Band-Aids, Did They Know It's Christmas was released, and Beverly Hills Cop was in the cinema, so quite a long time ago. In 1997, that's when we first caught her, and she was pregnant. So the yellow circle is where we caught her on the map, and then the two other red dots are where we caught 3 of her pups that year. So from genetics, we could tell that she'd given birth in those 2 nurseries in 1997. Again, that's when the first Harry Potter book was released, and Pokemon and the Titanic was in the movie theater. So she came back in 1999, 2001, 2003, and gave birth to a lot more pups. And then we caught her again in 2005. So that's where the yellow circle is. She really likes that eastern side of the island.
I was born in.
And yep, she gave birth again in both Sharkland and North Sound, the 2 different nurseries. And that's also the year that the Xbox 360 came out, or YouTube channel was started. So just to give a frame of reference of how long she's been swimming around. Then let me just move the screen, sorry. 2009, 11, and 13, we caught her pups again, a lot more pups. And then again in 2014, we caught her, but you might notice that's the wrong year that she was in Bimini. So she's in Bimini every other year to give birth. But 2014, she's there not giving birth. So that's an interesting question for a future study. And then the acoustic pinger that we put inside of her, we heard her on our array in 2015. So she was definitely back in Bimini again the year after. So in total, we've caught 65 of her pups. But usually every year they give birth to around 12 to 15 or 16 pups. So she's probably pupped a lot more. We just haven't caught them. So yeah, she's a big contributor to the lemon shark population in Bimini. But finally, just want to discuss, why is this important? Why do we need to know all of this cool information about their life cycle? So it's the same reason that we need to know that for many fish species, particularly the ones that we buy from the supermarket. So if we don't want to overfish or take too many from a population that we cause a population to crash, then we need to calculate and regulate how many fish that we take. And to know that, we need to know how many fish are in a population, which you can probably imagine is really hard to just go and count all the sharks in the ocean. But with some complicated mathematical models, we can guess, but we need to know how long a fish can live for, how many babies it can have, and how long it takes the shark to get old enough to then have babies. So all of these different pieces of information, we can kind of guess how many babies are going into the population, and therefore how many sharks we can fish every year without causing a population to crash. So yeah, that's why life cycle or life history information is important for a lot of fish species. And obviously it's really cool to think about where that shark was during different times of the year and things, but it's also quite important for fisheries management. So with that, I think I will have time for some questions. Hannah, do we have any?
All right, we had a couple come in. So, well, I think you answered the first one, but why is a lemon shark called a lemon shark?
Yes.
We could just go over that again.
Yes, because it's lemony in color, and that's all. They're found often on sandy bottom on the shallow waters with sand. So it's really, really hard to see them sometimes when they're swimming over sand because they're so yellow. So that's probably why they're that yellow.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It seems like a lot of sharks are colored perfectly for their environment, which is what keeps them safe and makes them able to eat and capture their food. So another question we got in there, do we know where Lucy goes when she's not in Bimini?
No, we don't. So those underwater microphones are super expensive, and we can only place them where we can travel to easily on a boat. So they're not everywhere in the ocean. So no, we can only know where she is if we have a microphone in place. And right now, that area of Bimini is covered, but you'd need a lot of the ocean covered with the microphones to know where she goes. Another way of finding out is putting a satellite tag on her. But again, we would have to catch her first, put on a satellite tag, and that would tell us where it's pinging around, and then it pings to a satellite and can tell us that way. But those tags are a few $1,000s each, so it's a very expensive question that we just have to guess for now.
For one single shark. And you and I got to work on a really great project on lemon sharks here on the coast of Florida, which isn't physically that far away from Bimini, where we had a lot of those listening stations. Did she ever crop up in Florida?
No,
No.
she never went to Florida. A lot of lemon sharks do go back and forth, but she never did. So I think she's a Bahamian shark. through and through.
I don't blame her. It's beautiful over there, for sure. So let's see what else we got coming in. Why do you think there were fewer pups some years compared to others?
So the mortality rate, so the amount of pups that die in their first few weeks is quite high. So probably it depends on if she gave birth, how long afterwards we were there to catch them in the nets. So they might have already been eaten or died or got lost in that time before she pupped and when we caught them. So we only caught those sharks from her litter, but they might have gone to a different nursery. We don't know. That's why it's like up and down every year. It'll really depend on timing.
So I kind of have a sensitive subject about how sharks get pregnant. Do you want to did you want to maybe touch on that?
Yeah. So male sharks have two claspers, which are like modified fins on the bottom of the shark, and they will swim up to a female, bite on the female, and hold it, and then one of the claspers kind of reaches over and then inseminates the female. But actually, this happens quite a lot for females, so she could have pups in one litter from multiple dads. So multiple paternity is what it's called, and yeah, a lot of Lucy's babies all had different dads. So,
ooh, scandalous. Okay. So a good question about diet as well. What else do lemon sharks eat? Yeah, just basically what do they like to eat?
So that changes as they get bigger, because their mouths, obviously they can't hold something and bite and chew, so they can only eat what can fit in their mouth at a time. So the smallest lemon sharks eat small fish, like their favorite is yellowfin mahara, like a little mangrove fish, tiny crabs, things like that. And then as they get bigger, they will go for bigger fish, so like barracuda and jacks and stingrays as well.
Oh, they do like stingrays. Awesome. That's the comment in here too. The smart group we've got. Uh-oh, have you ever been bitten by a lemon shark?
Nope.
Oh, phew. Okay, good. Good answer. That's good to hear.
It happens.
And you've handled quite a few and you've worked with them for years, so that's a good sign.
Hundreds.
Hundreds. And even not just little ones, big ones too. Okay, so here's a great question from Kristen and Sydney, I believe. How many pups do you think are in the nurseries? Not just Lucy's pups, but like in a pupping season, how many little ones do you think are swimming around in that area?
So in the North Sound, so that's like the triangle one in the north side of the island, we'll catch probably, I can't remember, between like 40 and 60 pups in those 6 nights. And then the bigger nursery further south, we can catch over 120 pups in 6 nights. So a lot of baby lemon sharks, yeah.
Really cute. That's amazing. Okay, so Amy has a question. Does it hurt the sharks to be tagged?
Thank you, Amy. Good question. Maybe, but sharks are really tough. So when I said about the mating, about the male sharks have to bite onto the females. So after they've finished mating, you should, like the state of the shark, they're all bitten up, they're all slashed up, they're bleeding, they've got scars all over them. So a tiny little needle just going in very quickly probably doesn't hurt them, and they heal really, really quickly. So after a week, you can't even see where you've tagged it. So it's
I mean, even that belly button seems to heal up super quick, so that shows it too. All right, one more question. Have you ever been swimming with the lemon sharks?
Yes. Yeah, they're really fun to swim with. They're a little cheeky, but they're fun. And and they're pretty tame. They're not very dangerous to swim with, so they're okay.
Nice. One more question from Ornella. How long do pit tags last?
So they're guaranteed, I think, for 10 years. But that pit tag lasted from 1997 to 2014. So 17 years. So way over the guarantee. But yeah, that's a good question. If the tag had run out, we wouldn't have known that she was a recaptured shark until the genetics told us that. But the genetics, the DNA lab, it takes a little bit longer. So we wouldn't have known it straight away.
Right. And one more. Why do you think they give birth in the spring and summer? Is it like the conditions are good, the temperature's nice?
That's a really good question.
Science just leads to more questions.
Yeah, thank you. I'm assuming it's temperature related, as a lot of the shark movements are driven by temperature. So the stuff that we learn in Florida with the big lemon sharks, they really like a narrow window temperature. So when the temperature changes, they'll move up the coast, and they just move up and down based on water temperature. So they just like being warm and cozy and trying to stay at the same temperature. So I'm assuming after a cooler winter, they're ready to give birth in the spring. A good question.
I think there's probably some moms out there that can relate to that, wanting to be nice and comfortable when they have little ones, for sure. So we have somebody on the call too that is interested in volunteering at the lab and has done some work and asked for some interview tips because I think they've got an interview on Friday.
Nice. Well, you can email me, but just being friendly. It's a really small house. You have to live with probably 20 other people in a very small house. So if you're able to get on with people and you work hard and you're positive, then usually you fit in very well. So yeah. But just email me.
That's good advice. Yeah, and I can send her a message with your email through here too. Anybody? Okay, and then another request for you to redo the entire presentation in a Blackburn accent, which I think I'm not sure if we have time for that today. Maybe another time.
I need to call home to reset my accent.
No, well, you guys, thank you so much. Thank you to Jill for talking today about lemon sharks and the cool lifespan of Lucy the lemon shark. I think it's an awesome story, and hopefully you guys had a good time. And if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to send us messages. We're always here to answer them. We love sharing the information we have. So we just want to say a huge thank you guys for hanging out, and I'm sure we can give a little round of applause for Jill, who's up in Chile, Canada, who was able to join us today and did such an awesome time. So awesome job. So thank you guys. Hope everyone stays safe and well. And we'll be doing another meeting next Wednesday at 11. So if you guys want to join us, keep in touch, and we'll give you all that information. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your rest of your day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.